This is a quick how to install the Globus Connect multi-user. This is focused only towards admins of Linux systems with many users. If you're only using a single user or only like one or two users, I highly recommend using regular Globus Connect. It does not require any firewall access or any type of special setup. First thing is the admin's going to need to have a login for regular globusonline.org. The other thing that's going to have to happen is the user that you are installing Globus as, which is pretty much always root, needs to have their public key uploaded to Globus so that it can log in without a password. And you do this just by, when you log into Globus Online, go to My Profile, Manage Identities, and add a SSH public key. Give it the name of the machine, it doesn't have to be a username or anything, and paste a key into here. I have already done this for the system I'm going to be demonstrating this on. I'm going to be demonstrating this on an Ubuntu machine, but this actually works identical for a Red Hat machine. So I've already downloaded Globus Connect Multi-User, which you can download from the globusonline.org/GCMU website. I've downloaded into Globus to user local source. When you untar this, it's actually going to run out of the directory it untars out of. So I'm actually going to untar this into user local rather than leaving it in source. Oops. Okay, so if I go to user local GCMU, all I actually need to do here is run /install. It's going to ask you if you want to create a new grid FTP server with myproxy CA. Because you want to use the umich myproxy that's already set up to go against Kerberos and everything, don't select this option. You would use this if you were setting up your completely own authentication endpoint and grid FTP server using your own authentication. You want to use number 2. This is to create a Globus endpoint with an existing myproxy CA. So we're going to select 2. Going to do some stuff, and it's going to ask for your Globus Online username. It's going to default to the user you're currently running as, but this is what you actually use for the Globus website. And then give this endpoint a name. It's going to default to the host name. This is like when you want to connect to flux. It's umich /flux. In this case, I'm going to create it as bruckp /flux, and then show you what you need to send us at flux-support@umich.edu for how to get this into the umich space. So you're going to actually have 2 names. The one under your username, and then the public one that will actually put under your umich name. So the endpoint name is, I'm going to leave it as myth. Public, in this case I'm going to say no. When I put it under umich, it will say yes. The host name for the machine, this is, if you're behind a NAT, you need to use the publicly accessible address for this, but I'm just going to go ahead and leave this as is. Restricts paths, you can go ahead and read the documentation it puts in front of you. This would be like if you want to make it so that users can only look into their home directory, or they can only look into, say, a specific scratch space, rather than any file system on the grid FTP server. I'm not going to use that this time. Then, because we said we want to authenticate against an existing myproxy CA, please specify an endpoint already associated with the myproxy server you want to use. So if I use umich /flux, this is going to use the same server that umich flux authenticates against. These port numbers are important. This is the control port. This is a port you're going to have to open on your firewall. I would go ahead and leave that to the default, but you're going to have to open up the port on your firewall on this machine to be able to allow access over to that port. Specify the range of TCP port numbers that the grid FTP server will use for inbound. The default is 50,000 to 51,000, so that's 1,000 ports. Because of the way Globus Connect works, we've actually ran into issues with this. I'm actually going to crank this up from 50,000, from 1,000 ports to 2,000 ports. This is the connections for the grid FTP server to connect out. Say you're sending data to another server. I'm going to do the same here, but you're also going to have to allow these port ranges out. And it's going to ask for the full path to the private key that matches the public key you uploaded. Again, I've already done this, and so I'm going to stick with the default. And so now it's actually going to connect to Globus Online, get a certificate that matches, and get the necessary information. Remove the endpoint if it already exists, and recreate it. So you'll notice here where it says creating the endpoint BrockP, that's my Globus Online username, #myth, which is the name of this server. My proxy server's been to myproxy umich.med.umich.edu. This is my proxy server for the campus. And it sets the distinguished name, and the server's been configured. It's going to ask you to start xinetd. The Grid FTP server actually runs out of xinetd. So you need to open the one port range for inbound connections, the other port range for outbound connections, and then you're going to have to open up the control channel, which is how it actually communicates. At this point, it's actually up and running. You might want to check to make sure that xinetd actually starts at boot and that you've set up your firewall settings. Before you can actually do any file transfers, you need to actually download the trusted certificates from my proxy server. The easiest way to do that is to actually get a script from us. You can just ask for that at flux-support@umich.edu. You can still go ahead and send the endpoint names and stuff, but we'll send you the script to do this. But the short is that we need to set up an environment, an LD library path, my proxy server location, my proxy server port, my proxy server distinguished name, as well as the directory in which to sort the certificates in. I'm actually going to do this, but again, it's going to go by relatively fast, and it's going to be better to just install in the get a script from us. So I'm going to set a variable to where I have installed Globus Connect multi-user. And I'm on a 64-bit system, so I'm using this version. I need to set LD library path equal to that location lib. And then I need to set the iProxy server. This string is not fun to type out, so again, just ask us for it and we'll send it to you. You can just paste it in. And then we need to set the X509 certificate directory, which is going to be where you installed Globus /GC etc CA. Then I need to run a command. It came with Globus. This is the only time I need to do this. You don't need to set this environment up long term. This is solely just so I can run this one command, which is bin my proxy logon -L my unique name -T -B for bootstrap. This will download the certificates. If the certificates expire on the my proxy server, which they should only every few years or so, just redo this process and it will download the new certificates. Let's try that again. And this is actually my Kerberos password because I'm actually authenticating against my proxy server. It's going to basically say, okay, you can have the certificates if you can authenticate against me. And again, these are just the public certificates. And those should say that they were installed in where you installed Globus Connect multi-user, GC etc CA. If you do this and it puts it someplace else, the endpoint won't work. You'll get an SSL3 error on the Globus Online website. So if that happens, just let us know or try going through this process again. You'll be able to, if you log into Globus Online, you should be able to actually send data using that endpoint. So the endpoint using my username myth, there's my endpoint, and so then it's going to go ahead and authenticate against BrockP myth. Test it here, putting your umich username and password. Your username on the server, of course, needs to match your umich username. And try actually transferring data. Once you verified that it works, go to Manage Endpoints in the Globus website. Find the endpoint you just created. Click on the Information button. send to flux-support the following pieces of information. The server address, this won't actually work because it's not fully qualified. So it needs to be something.umich.edu or similar. And I need the full subject DN. And you can go ahead and leave this as private. What's going to happen is we're going to take this information, where your server is, and the key for it. We're going to clone it, put it under the umich pound server name, and make it that one public. So the server will actually appear twice, once under your private name, and then once under the umich public name. Now, if your server is just shared between, say, 5 people, and it's not something you actually want to have out there under the umich name, you can actually change it to private when we ran the installer. You can actually change this after the fact from the command line tool. But you can actually make your endpoint public. It'll authenticate using umich, but it won't necessarily be in the umich pound namespace when people are visiting Globus Online. And that's it.